22 years ago, I found him behind my diner, curled up like a stray dog under the broken gutter pipe. Rain was coming down hard that night. I was locking up, keys in one hand, umbrella fighting me in the other, when I heard it. A cough. Small. Wet. I froze. "Who's there?" Nothing answered. I stepped closer anyway. He was maybe 12. Soaked through, arms wrapped around his knees, shivering so bad his teeth clicked together. I crouched down slow, the way you do with something scared. "Hey," I said. "You hear me?" His eyes opened. Big, dark, empty in a way no child's eyes should be. "I'm not doing anything wrong," he said. "I'll leave." Did I say leave? He blinked at me like the question didn't make sense. Like nobody had ever asked him to stay. "What's your name?" "Daniel." "Well, Daniel, it's raining and my diner's warm, and I've got soup that's going to get thrown out if somebody doesn't eat it." I held out my hand. "You'd be doing me a favor." He didn't move. "I don't have money." Did I ask for money? That got him. Something in his face cracked open, just a little, and he took my hand. Inside, he ate like he hadn't seen food in days. I didn't ask questions while he chewed. Questions could wait. When he finally slowed down, I asked anyway. "Where are your folks, Daniel?" He stared at the bowl. "Gone." "Gone where?" "Just gone." I didn't push. I'd learned a long time ago that some doors open slower than others, and you don't kick them down. You wait. "You can sleep in the back room tonight," I said. "Tomorrow you're washing dishes to pay me back for that soup." For the first time, he almost smiled. "I don't know how to wash dishes." "Nobody does at first. That's why I'm going to teach you." That was supposed to be one night. Turned into 3 months. He was good with his hands, quick with numbers, quiet unless you asked him something real. He'd sweep the floor twice if it wasn't perfect the first time. I gave him a cot, a job, 3 meals, and I never once asked him to explain himself. Then a caseworker came sniffing around. Some man named Grady with a clipboard and a tired voice. "He needs to be processed into the system, ma'am. There's a group home 2 counties over." "I know that home," I said. "I know what happens to boys there. It's not your decision. He's not your paperwork. He's a person." Grady didn't like that. He came back twice more. Each time I stood in that doorway like it was the last wall standing between Daniel and something I couldn't undo. I didn't have money for a lawyer. I didn't have connections. All I had was a diner that barely broke even and a stubborn refusal to hand a scared kid over to a system that had already failed him once. I thought I was winning that fight. Then one morning I came down to open up, and the cot in the back room was empty. No note, no goodbye, just his blanket folded neat at the foot of the bed, like he didn't want to leave a mess behind. I stood there a long time. "Where'd you go, kid?" I said out loud to nobody. Nobody answered. I searched for him for 2 weeks, the bus station, the shelter downtown, anywhere a boy with nothing might end up. Ruthie told me to let it go. "You did what you could, Opal. Sometimes that has to be enough." It never felt like enough. But time moves whether you're ready or not, and eventually I stopped searching and started surviving, same as always. 22 years is a long time to wonder about a face you never forgot. I'm 63 now. My knees ache when it rains, same as that night. And this morning, when I walked up to unlock the diner, there was a different kind of paper waiting for me. Taped right across the door where the boy used to sit. Eviction notice. I read it twice before my hands stopped shaking enough to pull it down. I was still holding the notice when Harold Voss pulled up in his silver truck, like he'd been waiting around the corner for me to find it. "Morning, Opal." He didn't get out, just rolled the window down halfway. "You want to explain this?" I held the paper up. "Land got sold. New owners want to break ground by spring." He said it the way you'd read a grocery list. "Strip mall, maybe a pharmacy. You've got 30 days. 30 days. My voice came out flatter than I meant it to. "I've been in this building 31 years, Harold." "I know that." "Then you know what you're asking." "I'm not asking anything. I'm telling you what the contract says." He finally looked at me, and there was something almost like guilt in his face, gone as fast as it showed up. "I'm sorry. I really am. Sorry doesn't keep the lights on." He didn't have an answer for that. He rolled the window back up and drove off, and I stood on my own sidewalk feeling like the ground had been pulled out from under me without so much as a warning. I went inside, sat down at the counter that used to be mine to give away free coffee at, and I called my son. It rang twice before Priya picked up. Opal, Marcus is in a meeting. I need to talk to him. It's important. Everything's important with you. Pause sharp enough to cut. What is it? They're taking the diner. I've got 30 days to clear out. I don't know what I expected. Concern, maybe. A little softness. Well, Priya said. That building was falling apart anyway. Maybe this is a sign. A sign of what? Exactly? That it's time to finally retire, Opal. You're 63. You've been on your feet since you were 19. Isn't that enough? I'm not calling for advice on retirement. I'm calling because I don't have anywhere to go. Another pause, longer this time, like she was choosing her words the way you choose which knife to use. There's a place 2 towns over, she said. Small rooms, month to month. I saw it online. It's not much, but it's affordable, and it's close enough that Marcus could visit. You want me to move into a rented room across town instead of staying with my own family? It's not about wanting, Opal. We just don't have the space. You have a guest room. That's Mateo's playroom now. I sat there with the phone against my ear and my chest going tight in a way I didn't like. Priya, I held that boy the day he was born. I have never once asked you for anything in 6 years. And I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm being practical. Somebody has to be. Put my son on the phone. He's in a meeting, I told you. Put him on the phone, Priya. There was a muffled sound, like she'd covered the receiver. And then Marcus's voice, quiet, careful. The way he always got when he was standing between 2 people he didn't want to disappoint. Mom, hey, what's going on? They're evicting me from the diner. 30 days. Oh, Mom, that's awful. I'm sorry. Priya suggested I rent a room 2 towns over. Silence. Long enough that I could hear him breathing, weighing something. She's not wrong, that space is tight right now, he finally said. But I'll figure something out. Okay. Just give me a little time. How much time, Marcus? I don't know. Some. Just don't do anything rash. All right? I looked around the diner. The counter, the booths, the faded photo of my husband taped by the register, and felt 30 years pressing down on me all at once. I've never done anything rash in my life, I said. I raised you better than that. He didn't say anything to that. I hung up the phone and sat alone in the quiet, listening to the rain start up again outside. Same as the night it all began. I was still holding the notice when Harold Voss pulled up in his silver truck, like he'd been waiting around the corner for me to find it. Morning, Opal. He didn't get out, just rolled the window down halfway. You want to explain this? I held the paper up. Land got sold. New owners want to break ground by spring. He said it the way you'd read a grocery list. Strip mall, maybe a pharmacy. You've got 30 days. 30 days. My voice came out flatter than I meant it to. I've been in this building 31 years, Harold. I know that. Then you know what you're asking. I'm not asking anything. I'm telling you what the contract says. He finally looked at me, and there was something almost like guilt in his face, gone as fast as it showed up. I'm sorry. I really am. Sorry doesn't keep the lights on. He didn't have an answer for that. He rolled the window back up and drove off, and I stood on my own sidewalk feeling like the ground had been pulled out from under me without so much as a warning. I went inside, sat down at the counter that used to be mine to give away free coffee at, and I called my son. It rang twice before Priya picked up. Opal, Marcus is in a meeting. I need to talk to him. It's important. Everything's important with you. Pause sharp enough to cut. What is it? They're taking the diner. I've got 30 days to clear out. I don't know what I expected. Concern, maybe. A little softness. Well, Priya said. That building was falling apart anyway. Maybe this is a sign. A sign of what? Exactly? That it's time to finally retire, Opal. You're 63. You've been on your feet since you were 19. Isn't that enough? I'm not calling for advice on retirement. I'm calling because I don't have anywhere to go. Another pause, longer this time, like she was choosing her words the way you choose which knife to use. There's a place 2 towns over, she said. Small rooms, month to month. I saw it online. It's not much, but it's affordable, and it's close enough that Marcus could visit. You want me to move into a rented room across town instead of staying with my own family? It's not about wanting, Opal. We just don't have the space. You have a guest room. That's Mateo's playroom now. I sat there with the phone against my ear and my chest going tight in a way I didn't like. Priya, I held that boy the day he was born. I have never once asked you for anything in 6 years. And I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm being practical. Somebody has to be. Put my son on the phone. He's in a meeting, I told you. Put him on the phone, Priya. There was a muffled sound, like she'd covered the receiver. And then Marcus's voice, quiet, careful. The way he always got when he was standing between 2 people he didn't want to disappoint. Mom, hey, what's going on? They're evicting me from the diner. 30 days. Oh, Mom, that's awful. I'm sorry. Priya suggested I rent a room 2 towns over. Silence. Long enough that I could hear him breathing, weighing something. She's not wrong, that space is tight right now, he finally said. But I'll figure something out. Okay. Just give me a little time. How much time, Marcus? I don't know. Some. Just don't do anything rash. All right? I looked around the diner. The counter, the booths, the faded photo of my husband taped by the register, and felt 30 years pressing down on me all at once. I've never done anything rash in my life, I said. I raised you better than that. He didn't say anything to that. I hung up the phone and sat alone in the quiet, listening to the rain start up again outside, same as the night it all began. Ruthie showed up at 7 in the morning with 2 coffees and a stack of empty boxes, not waiting to be asked. Figured you'd need help, she said, kicking the door shut behind her with her heel. I didn't call you. You didn't have to. She set the coffees down on the counter. 31 years, Opal. You think I'm letting you pack this place up alone? We worked most of the morning in near silence, wrapping plates in newspaper, taking the photos down off the wall one by one. When we got to the picture of my husband by the register, my hands stopped moving on their own. You okay? Ruthie asked. He'd have hated this, watching me lose the place he helped me build. He'd have hated you crying about it more. I laughed despite myself. You're not wrong. Around noon, word had gotten out, and the regulars started showing up. Not for coffee, just to say goodbye. Mr. Petrosky came in leaning on his cane and pressed a card into my hand. Don't open it here, he said. You'll argue with me. I opened it anyway. $200 folded inside a handwritten note. Mr. Petrosky, I can't take this. You fed my wife for free the whole year she was sick. You're taking it. That was different. It wasn't, and you know it. He patted my hand and walked out before I could argue further. More came after him. A folded 20 from the Garcia family. A card from the church ladies with $40 in it and a promise of prayers. I tried to hand every bit of it back, and every single person refused. Take it, Opal, Ruthie finally said, watching me try to give a $5 bill back to a teenager who could barely afford it himself. Let people give something back for once. You've spent 30 years giving it away first. I don't like owing people. It's not owing. It's love. Learn the difference. By late afternoon, the boxes were nearly done, and the diner looked strange. Bare walls, empty shelves, sound bouncing different in a room used to being full. I found Ellis in the back, wiping down a fryer that didn't need to be spotless anymore. You don't have to do that, I said. We're closing for good, Ellis. I know. He kept wiping. Just don't know what else to do with my hands. You got somewhere lined up? Another job? He didn't answer right away, and something in his silence told me more than words would have. Ellis, I've been staying at the Motel 6 off Route 9, he finally said. Been there since my aunt kicked me out in June. I was going to ask for extra shifts here to cover it, but I guess that's not happening now. How old are you? 19. I looked at him, thin, tired around the eyes in a way 19 shouldn't be, and something old and familiar stirred in my chest. A feeling I hadn't let myself feel in 22 years. You got family anywhere? Not really. Not anybody who wants me, anyway. Well, I set down the box I was holding. I've got a spare room. It's not much, and it won't be forever, but it's warm and it's paid for through the month. Ellis stared at me like I'd offered him something impossible. You don't even know me that well, Ms. Opal. I know you show up early. I know you stayed late every night without being asked. That tells me plenty. I don't have much money to give you for rent. Did I ask for rent? Something in his face cracked open the way it had the last time I said those exact words to a scared kid, decades ago, though he had no way of knowing that. Okay, he said, voice thick. Okay, thank you. Don't thank me yet. You're washing every dish I own starting tomorrow. For the first time all day, he smiled. Sheriff Combs showed up at 9 sharp, right on schedule, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else on earth. Morning, Opal. He took his hat off, which he never did unless something bad was coming. Morning, Sheriff. You here to arrest me for owning a diner too long? I'm here because the county says I have to be. Doesn't mean I want to be. He glanced back at the 2 men behind him, already carrying boxes toward the curb. I'll make it quick as I can. Appreciate that, at least. I stood on the sidewalk and watched 31 years of my life get carried out piece by piece. The coffee maker, the old jukebox that hadn't worked right since 2003, a stack of chairs Ellis and I hadn't gotten to yet. Ruthie stood beside me, arms crossed, muttering under her breath about people with badges and no backbone. You don't have to say anything, I told her. I'm not saying anything to him. I'm saying it to God, and he agrees with me. Harold Voss pulled up across the street in his silver truck, parking it next to a big white banner already strung up on the empty lot. Grand Break Ground, New Beginnings Plaza. He climbed out in a suit that looked too tight in the shoulders, clipboard in hand, checking his watch every few seconds. 10 more minutes, he called to somebody. Investors are due any minute. Must be nice, Ruthie said, loud enough for him to hear. Throwing a party on the same morning you're putting a widow out on the street. Harold had the decency to look uncomfortable, at least. He didn't answer her. That's when I heard it. A low chopping sound, far off but getting louder, rattling the windows of what used to be my diner. Everybody on the sidewalk looked up at once. Sheriff, I said, is that a helicopter? Sounds like it. It came in low over the rooftops, black and sleek, circling once before easing down into the empty lot right behind Harold's ribbon and his shiny banner. Wind kicked up dust and napkins and one of Harold's own signs, sending it cartwheeling across the street. What in the world? Harold started, then stopped as 3 black SUVs rolled up right behind it, doors opening in perfect sync, men in dark suits stepping out like they'd rehearsed it. Move that, move that. Harold was shouting at someone, waving his arms at the banner now flapping loose in the wind. This is supposed to be my ribbon cutting. Who authorized a landing here? Nobody answered him. The helicopter's blades slowed, and the door on the side swung open. Opal? Ruthie whispered, grabbing my arm. Opal, who is that? I didn't know. Not yet. A tall man in a dark coat stepped down, and even from across the street, something about the way he moved, careful, watchful, like he was still bracing for someone to tell him he didn't belong, snagged at a memory I couldn't place. Harold hurried toward him, clipboard clutched to his chest like armor. Sir, I'm sorry. This is a private event, if you could. I know exactly what event this is, the man said, voice carrying easy across the street. I bought the company that owns this land 2 weeks ago. Harold's face went white. That's not possible. I'd have been notified. You were. Check your email. The man glanced past Harold, scanning the sidewalk, the boxes stacked on the curb. The faded sign that used to hang over my door now leaned up against a lamppost. Then his eyes landed on me, and he went still. Sheriff? I said quietly. Who is that man? Sheriff Combs shook his head slow. No idea, Opal. But whoever he is, He just made Harold Voss look real small real fast. The man crossed the street toward us, and every step he took, that half-buried memory in the back of my mind pulled a little tighter, a little clearer, until my breath caught in my throat. "It can't be," I whispered. Ruthie looked at me. "Opal, you're shaking. You know him?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. I just stood there on the curb, surrounded by everything I owned in cardboard boxes, staring at a face I hadn't seen in 22 years. He stopped a few feet from me, close enough now that I could see the lines around his eyes, the gray just starting at his temples. Not a boy anymore. Not even close. "Opal," he said, like he was tasting the word after years of not being allowed to say it. "Do I know you?" My voice came out smaller than I wanted it to. "You fed me soup in the rain when I was 12 years old and told me it wasn't charity. It was a favor I was doing you." His voice caught. "You taught me how to wash dishes." The boxes on the curb, Harold, the helicopter, all of it fell away. My knees nearly went out from under me. Ruthie grabbed my elbow to steady me. "Daniel," I whispered. "Daniel, it's me. You're—" I looked him up and down, the coat, the men behind him, the helicopter still ticking as it cooled in the empty lot. "Look at you. I go by Daniel Reyes now. Been that way a long time." A woman stepped up beside him, tablet in hand, calm as still water. "Ms. Whitfield, I'm Grace Kim. I work with Mr. Reyes." "You've been looking for me?" I said, understanding dawning slow. "That's how you found this address." 3 months, Grace said. "Mr. Reyes asked me to track down a woman named Opal who ran a diner in a small town. Sometime in the last 20 years. That's all he had. No last name he remembered for certain, no address. It took a while." "Why now?" I asked Daniel. "Why after 22 years? He looked down at the sidewalk, then back up at me. "Because 2 months ago, one of my analysts flagged a land deal, small town, diner property, for sale. I almost skipped right past it. Then I saw the town's name, and something in my chest went cold. I had to know if it was you." "You knew the town's name after 22 years? "I never forgot it, Opal. I never forgot any of it." Ruthie found her voice before I could. "Hold on. You two know each other." "She saved my life," Daniel said simply. "That's not an exaggeration. I mean that exactly the way it sounds." "Why did you leave?" I asked him, the question I'd carried for 2 decades finally coming loose. "I woke up and you were just gone. No note. Nothing." His jaw tightened. "Grady came back a 3rd time, the caseworker. I heard you two arguing through the wall. You were about to lose your business fighting for me. Ruthie'd already warned you the county was threatening your license over it. I couldn't let that happen. So I left before you had to choose." "Daniel." "I hitchhiked 2 states over. Slept in a bus station for 11 days. A man named Walter Finch found me there, half-starved, and instead of calling the cops, he asked me if I could add numbers in my head." A small, tired smile crossed his face. "Turned out I could. He gave me a job sweeping his warehouse. Then he taught me the business, and 20 years later that business belongs to me." "You built all this?" I said, gesturing at the helicopter. The suits, the men standing quiet and watchful around him. "Out of a bus station?" "I built it out of a diner first," he said. "Everything Walter taught me, I already half knew because of you. You taught me people matter more than profit. Most men in my position forgot that lesson a long time ago. I never did. I looked for you," I said, my voice breaking now. 2 weeks. I walked every bus station in 3 counties. "I know. Grace found the missing person report you filed. I read it 100 times. His eyes were wet now too. This billionaire in his dark coat standing on a cracked sidewalk in front of a town nobody important ever visited. You called me a boy who mattered. Nobody had ever written those words about me before. You were a boy who mattered. I kept looking for a woman in a yellow apron for 22 years, he said. Every diner I ever walked into, some part of me was checking the counter, just in case. Harold Voss's voice cut in from behind us, thin and panicked. "Mr. Reyes, sir. If I could just explain the timeline of the sale." Daniel didn't even turn his head. Not now, Harold. He looked back at me, and for a second he wasn't a billionaire at all. He was just a boy in the rain, looking for somebody to tell him he could stay. I'm not leaving again, he said. Not this time. I didn't have words left. I just reached out and pulled him into a hug the way I should have gotten the chance to 22 years ago, and he held on like he was 12 years old all over again. Daniel finally let me go, and when he turned around, the warmth in his face was gone. What replaced it was something I hadn't seen since he was 12 years old and squaring up against a caseworker twice his size. Quiet, immovable, done asking nicely. Harold, he said, let's talk about that timeline. Harold straightened his tie, forcing his voice into something businesslike. Mr. Reyes, I don't know what your interest is here, but this development has been in motion for 8 months. Contracts are signed. Investors are arriving. I know. I invited some of them myself. Harold blinked. You what? Right on cue, a line of cars started pulling up along the empty lot. Well-dressed men and women stepping out, some of them already whispering to each other. Phones out. 3 months ago, Daniel said, loud enough now for the growing crowd to hear. My company quietly purchased the outstanding debt on Voss Development. All of it. Every note, every loan you used to fund this project. That's not true. I'd have been informed. You were informed. Grace sent the notice to your legal team 6 weeks ago. Maybe you should read your emails instead of planning ribbon cuttings. Daniel's tone stayed calm, but there wasn't a shred of warmth left in it. As of this morning, I control the majority of your company's debt obligations, which means effectively I control you. A murmur ran through the investors gathering near the banner. One of them, an older woman in a sharp gray coat, stepped closer. Daniel, is this true? We were told this deal was clean. It was clean, Margaret. Just not clean the way Harold's been telling you. Daniel glanced at me, then back at Harold. This lot, this diner property. I'm exercising my right as majority creditor to halt the demolition, effective immediately. Harold's face had gone from pale to something closer to gray. You can't do that. We have permits. You have permits for a project that no longer has funding because I just pulled it. Daniel pulled a folded paper from inside his coat and held it out, not to Harold, but to me. This is a purchase agreement. I'm buying this parcel of land outright, at fair market value, from Voss Development. Buying it, I repeated. For what? For you. He placed the paper in my hands. It's already filed. The deed transfers to Opal Whitfield. Free and clear. No mortgage, no lease, no landlord standing over you ever again. I stared down at my name printed there in black ink, and for a second I couldn't make my mouth work. Daniel, I can't accept. You can and you will, he said gentler now just for me. You gave me a roof when you had almost nothing. I'm giving you one back when I have more than enough. Harold found his voice again, thin and desperate now. This is outrageous. I built this deal from the ground up. You can't just walk in with a helicopter and unravel 8 months of work over some sentimental favor to a diner owner. The investor named Margaret turned on him sharply. Harold, did you hide a majority creditor change from this entire investment group? I didn't hide anything. I simply hadn't gotten around to. 8 weeks, Harold, Daniel said. You had 8 weeks to disclose it. Margaret was already on her phone, walking away, voice low and clipped. 2 other investors followed her, exchanging glances that weren't friendly to Harold at all. Harold turned to me, and for the first time since I'd known him, he looked less like a man in charge and more like a man drowning. Opal, I didn't know he was. I would never have. You knew exactly what you were doing when you taped that notice to my door, I said. Don't pretend different now that the wind's changed. He didn't have an answer for that. He just stood there, clutching his clipboard like it might still save him, while his investors climbed back into their cars one by one and drove off without him. Word travels fast in a small town, faster still when it involves a helicopter. By the time Daniel's men had started unloading folding tables to hand out coffee to the crowd that had gathered, Marcus's car came screeching around the corner. Mom! He was out of the car before it fully stopped, Priya trailing a few steps behind, her heels clicking fast against the pavement. "Mom, are you okay?" we heard. "Is that a helicopter?" "I'm fine, Marcus." Priya's eyes swept the scene. The SUVs, Daniel in his dark coat, the deed still in my hand, and her whole face changed shape, softening into something I hadn't seen aimed at me in years. "Opal," she said. Warm now, warmer than I'd heard from her in a long time. "We came as soon as we heard something happened. Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine now, actually." I held up the paper. "This is my land. Free and clear. A friend bought it back for me." Marcus's eyes went wide. "A friend?" "Daniel Reyes," I said. "You might have heard of him." I watched it land on both their faces at once. Recognition, then something closer to hunger. "The Daniel Reyes?" Priya's voice climbed half an octave. "Opal, that's incredible. How do you two know each other?" "He's the boy I took in 22 years ago. The one nobody wanted." "You never told us that story," Marcus said. "You never asked." Priya recovered fast, already angling toward Daniel with a smile stretched tight across her face. "Mr. Reyes, it's such an honor. Opal's told us so much about you." She hadn't. We both knew that. "We're so grateful for what you're doing for our family." Something in me went very still and very calm. "Priya," I said, "you told my grandson I wasn't allowed to visit without calling first. You told me 2 weeks ago that this town embarrassed you in front of Marcus's co-workers. Now suddenly I'm our family?" Priya's smile faltered. "Opal, this isn't the time. It's exactly the time. You've spent 6 years keeping me at arm's length because you were ashamed of a diner owner in a small town. Now that diner owner happens to know somebody with a helicopter, and suddenly you're calling me family in front of a crowd. That's not fair. Isn't it?" Mateo, who'd climbed out of the car and been standing quiet by Marcus's leg this whole time, tugged on his mother's sleeve. "Mommy, is Grandma Opal rich now?" "Not now, baby. You said we don't visit rich people's houses because it looks like we want something," Mateo said loud and clear, the way only a child can say something devastating without meaning to. "Is that why we came today? Because Grandma's friend is rich." The crowd around us had gone quiet enough that Mateo's voice carried further than he intended. Daniel, standing a few feet off, didn't say a word, but I saw his jaw tighten. Priya's face went red. "Mateo, that's enough. But you did say that. About the neighbors and about Grandma's diner and—" "Mateo." Priya's voice cracked sharp, and the boy flinched, shrinking back against Marcus's leg. I crouched down and held my hand out to him. "You didn't do anything wrong, sweetheart. You just told the truth. That's never something to be ashamed of." He came to me, and I held him while Priya stood there with nothing left to say. Her carefully built warmth burned away in front of half the town and a man worth more money than she'd ever imagined meeting. Marcus finally looked at his wife, something shifting behind his eyes. "Priya, is that true? What he said?" "Marcus, don't do this here. Is it true?" She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her silence answered for her, loud enough for everyone standing on that sidewalk to hear. I stood back up, Mateo's small hand still in mine, and looked at my son. "Family isn't a word, Marcus. It's a verb. It's something you do, every day, whether or not there's a helicopter parked across the street." He didn't argue with me. For the first time in years, he didn't have anything to say at all. 6 months later, I stood on the sidewalk and watched Ellis climb a ladder to hang the sign back up. My sign. The same faded letters, just repainted a little brighter than before. "Careful," I called up to him. "That thing's older than you are. It's not crooked, is it?" He leaned back, squinting at it. "Little to the left." He adjusted it, climbed down, and stood beside me admiring it like it was a piece of art instead of a chunk of painted wood. "Feels good, doesn't it? Having it back up. Feels like coming home," I said, which is exactly what it is. Inside, the diner looked almost the same as it always had. Same counter, same booths, new coat of paint on the walls Ruthie insisted we needed. Ellis had taken to the register like he'd been born behind it, And most mornings now I let him run the floor while I handled the kitchen. Same as I once dreamed of doing when my knees were younger. You're a partner now, you know? I told him one morning, sliding the paperwork across the counter. Not just an employee. He stared at it like I'd handed him the moon. Ms. Opal, I don't have money to buy into anything. Did I ask for money? He laughed, a little wet-eyed, and signed his name. Daniel came by most Sundays, same booth every time, tucked in the corner where he could see the door. The suits stayed in the car now. In here, he was just Daniel, eating pie like any other customer, though the whole town still whispered when his car pulled up out front. You don't have to keep coming, I told him one Sunday, setting a slice down in front of him. I know I don't have to. He took a bite, closed his eyes a second. Still tastes the same. Better. Ellis learned to make the crust flakier than I ever could. You're the closest thing to a mother I've ever had, Opal, he said quiet, not looking up from his plate. I don't say that easy. I don't say it to just anybody. I know, Daniel. I mean it. I know you do. Marcus started coming around too, slow at first, awkward, like he wasn't sure he'd earned a seat at the counter yet. Priya wasn't with him anymore. She'd moved out that spring, quiet about it, no big scene, just gone from our lives the way she tried to keep me gone from theirs. Marcus never explained the details, and I never asked. Some things don't need saying twice. I should have stood up for you a long time ago, he told me one evening, turning his coffee cup slow in his hands. I let her decide who mattered in this family. That was my fault, not hers. You're here now, I said. That's what matters. I want Mateo to know you, really know you, not just holidays and peppermints. I'd like that too. That's how Mateo ended up at the counter most Saturday afternoons after that, swinging his legs on the stool too tall for him, watching me flip pancakes with the kind of focus only a 6-year-old can manage. One Saturday, he looked up at me with syrup on his chin and asked, Grandma, can you tell me the story again? The one about the boy in the rain. I set down my spatula and came around the counter, sitting beside him. 22 years ago, I said. I was locking up this very diner when I heard something behind the building. Rain coming down hard, same as tonight's supposed to be. Was it scary? A little, but I went to look anyway. I smiled, glancing toward the booth where Daniel usually sat. Empty tonight, but never really empty at all. And there, curled up under the gutter pipe, soaked clean through, was a boy who needed somebody to tell him he could stay.